Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode. And I'm absolutely thrilled today to have back with me Kenneth O'Neal. First of all, Kenneth, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for allowing me to come. It's wonderful. I'm excited.
Kenneth, you've had a lot going on in 2025. We haven't caught up for a while, but what I wanted to start with is one of the most exciting things I'm aware of you've got upcoming, and that's the third annual Zig Ziglar and Circle of Gumption conference. So could you tell us about that to start with?
Oh, yes, I'd be honored. So for 2 years we did number one, number two. And so in 2025, we're doing the third annual Ziglar explosion. And of course, that's always bringing the principles of Zig Ziglar and what he did for over 50 years when they say he had the responsibility of connecting with over 250 million people worldwide, and his principles, they still stand today. And in starting putting it together, of course, number one, we try to get Tom Ziglar. And you talk about somebody busy. He's almost as busy as you, Tom. And so he's really busy. But I talked to him this morning, and we are working on a way to get Tom here. So I'm really excited about that. But we have, including you, we have 8 phenomenal speakers, 8. And we're doing a special thing this year. The conference itself will be on Friday and Saturday, October 10 and 11. But on Thursday night, we're having, you know, how you have a icebreaker. Let's have a little event where people can meet people and chat and everything. But my good friend, Kevin Williams, who is with the Gaither Vocal Band, he's their guitarist and their music director. And he's going to do a solo concert. And so the people in the hill country, and I went around to several places today talking about him and what he's going to be doing. And they're so excited because people that are, say, let's say over 40, they know their Gaither Vocal Band. I mean, they've been here before. They've been to Austin, San Antonio, Texas. They've been all over, just came back from a 2-week cruise, went to Alaska. So a lot of people know. And so Kevin's going to be here. And we're going to be talking. One of the guys that I have coming is from Phoenix, Arizona, and he's been a pastor for over 35 years. He's head of the leadership and management department at Grand Canyon University. And I didn't know this until I just heard it yesterday, but they have over 100,000 students at that school that are online. And I think they have maybe 20, 25,000 on campus, but largest enrollment in the world, I think, well over 1 million kids.
Can you maybe give us a teaser or preview of some of the other speakers?
Yes. Now, David Bowen, that guy just talked about, he is a specialist in Middle East. And he just came back from 3 weeks of being there with the IDF. And he will be giving us a Middle East update during those 2 days. And then we have Angie.
Sounds pretty sobering.
Yeah. In fact, you know what he calls it? It's terror, not war.
He's right, not wrong, that's for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm not sure to all the extent that he's going to be going, because he's really coming because of his leadership and management skills over the years as a professor and a businessman. And then we have Angie Krellin, who will be with us, and she is the number one facilitator for Zig Ziglar Corporation. In other words, she's the first voice that everybody hears when it comes to being introduced to the Ziglar Corporation. And then she's actually going to speak on, and she's been through a lot in her life. She's a widow, and she's going to be talking about how do you overcome that fear. In other words, if you got something that you really want to do, it's a big thing for you, but you haven't started it and you kind of hesitate. So she's going to talk about how do you overcome that, taking that first step, taking the right thing and doing the right thing. And then we have Lisa Marie David, she actually works at the St. Jude Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. And she worked with Danny Thomas and Zig Ziglar together. and she is an expert when it comes to personalities. And so she's going to do a small workshop for us on how do you communicate with people that are directly opposite of you, those people that probably disinterested or they react rather than responding. So she'll be teaching us how to do that. And I am going to speak on the first day. I'll open with my keynote of gumption, grit, and guts. And I love alliteration, but that everybody is now beginning to pick up on this word of gumption, of being your ability to initiate, to get started, because that's what it's all about, is making that decision of getting involved in life and staying involved. A lot of people today are just stepping out. But so once you get past the gumption, you get into grit. And grit is that long-term resilience. And so with the gumption and grit together, you make those decisions, but you stay with them for the long term. And then the gut part is your intestinal fortitude. What do you really stand for? What do you really want to do? And how do you do it? And that's one of my major topics is we want to have a well-balanced life. We want to align our work with our home life. There's no way you can have a proper, successful family life if you're at the office 18, 19 hours a day. I mean, you've got to have that balance. You've got to be the great example. Children don't learn from parents telling them what to do. Children learn from the great example. The great example of, the husband, he walks in the kitchen, wife's washing the dishes, walks up behind her and says, "Honey, I sure love you." Instead of pointing a finger at her because something didn't get done, blaming her. Be kind, be considerate. I mean, last time I looked, we don't have an encore for this. This is the real deal we're in right now. And that's what this whole conference is about, is sharing with people, giving them the knowledge and the wisdom, the experience. I mean, just look at the life that you have led, all the things you've done, all the information, the compliance, and instructing people on how to do the right thing, like we were talking about earlier. Let's do the right thing. And Gary Keller with Keller Williams wrote a wonderful book. It's called One, O-N-E. And in that book, he said, what is the next one thing that you can do that either will eliminate having to do everything else in that arena, or it will change everything? The one right thing. And you and I both know this, to come down to one major word: integrity. Integrity. Do the right thing even if they are not looking. If they're not looking. And integrity builds the big things we need: trust, respect, kindness, and being considerate. And I mean, I want to bring all these people together and let them see that you can live the proper life and do the right things by being focused, being involved, and being intentional. Intentional. I'm here. I'm going to serve others. And that's my calling in life, is to take the wisdom that I got from my grandmother. I think she got it from God. I think her wisdom. But the wisdom, the knowledge, and the experience that I've had as a certified public accountant, as a speaker, as a writer, all of this information. I don't want to be guilty of the sin of the desert, of which you and I have chatted about. If you know where the water is in the desert, you need to share it with everybody. Share that location. So all of this information I got, being a CPA, being an accountant, being a business owner, bring all that together so that we can align your work life with your home life. Because that's really what people want. Number one thing everybody wants: happiness. Happiness. Being a certain amount of prosperity, good health, security. All of those things are things we want. But one of my biggest things is with my business owners. I say, they ask me, they say, what can you do for me? I said, I can reduce your stress and let you get a good night's sleep. You know, I know you and I have been awakened over the years, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning when we're working on a client, and you say, God, why didn't I think of that before? But all of a sudden it comes to you. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. And Kevin Williams is coming. We'll have a great deal with him in that night before conference. We'll have that where he comes and does a solo performance for us.
Kenneth, do you have a site, a website, or other location who any of our listeners might want more information or even to sign up for the third annual Ziglar Explosion to go to?
Thank you for asking. Yes, all they have to do is go to my website, and it's my first and middle initial, my last name, O'Neal, KRONEAL.com. Go to the event at the top of the page, and then click on it, and you will get exactly what you and I are looking at. There'll be a page on the conference itself and a page for Kevin Williams. Now, one of the specials about Kevin Williams, we've got 2 levels of tickets. We're going to have 100 of the tickets will be special VIP seating, and they'll get copies personally signed by Kevin of a couple of his CDs. And so we'll do that. And then the conference itself, just go in there and fill out the information and register and take care of the payment. It's right. The conference itself is $497 for the 2 days. It includes breakfast and lunch. And of course, our lunches in Texas, they're big. The first day, we're going to have a barbecue extravaganza. And the Saturday, we're going to have chicken fried steak. And the end of the hills is just great. We do a lot of stuff in that ballroom. And so the food's going to be great. The entertainment will be great. And the conference itself is going to be wonderful. Great job.
Kenneth, we've got a few minutes left, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about your podcast.
My podcast.
You do a weekly podcast, and that's all I'm going to set it up. The rest is on you. Tell us about your weekly podcast.
Okay. It's called the Circle of Gumption Movement. All right. And I tell you, Tom, I wish I'd have had your information the first night I did it, because I had this desire that the people had to get to know all the information. It turned out to be a 50-minute lecture, fast. But then I decided, no, we're going to break this thing down. So I divided it up into 3 15-minute or so segments. And the first one is the same thing that we do, the word of the week. So I go into detail of the word of the week, first 15 or 20 minutes. And then I do a topic from my book, The Circle of Gumption. So we're going through the book. And last week we talked about integrity, which is a chapter on integrity. There's also one on forgiveness. But each week we do something with the book itself. And then the third segment is, you remember Benjamin Franklin, when he was 18 or 19, he came up with those 13 virtues that he thought he needed to work on. So I took that number 13 and I thought to myself, what are the 13 virtues required of a person with gumption? So I've got a wheel of life that's got 13 spokes on it. So every quarter, 13 weeks, we go through one of those virtues of Gumption. And then I usually have 4 or 5 minutes for questions and all. But
So, what's the significance of the word of the week? Tell us a little bit more about that.
a number of years ago, I was reading one of I think it might have been Dale Carnegie or one of those guys in personal development a long time ago. And he said something about you need to learn a new word every week. And I said, wow, that'd be a great thing to increase your vocabulary, give you a little more outlook on things you don't know anything about. And so I do a lot of reading. I spend 2 to 2.5 hours every morning doing my devotionals and the things that I do to motivate myself. And I am always reading. And when I find a word, I want to share that word. So I share it. And I think it's very important. And when we announce the opening, because the first time I do it on the radio program here in Kerrville, but I always advise people write it down, write the word down, and then think about it and use it during the week. And we talked about this past week mental toughness. And so that attitude, that mindset, that has to do with controlling your mind. Several people, Aristotle and Aurelius, and a lot of those people talked about controlling your mind and self-discipline. We get challenged every day with lots of things, but you have to stand tall, stand firm against things that are temptations that come your way or things that are against your belief system. And once you identify your system and then staying on that, you want to make sure, like we say in Rotary, your deeds and your words and how you do it, the inflection. And body language is much more important than the words, actually. But so I just think that it's important to increase your vocabulary, learn how to use the language. My grandmother told me a long time ago, she said, Kenneth, do not use cuss words. The English language is beautiful, but you need to know how to use it and what are the principles of it and how does it really work. I try to stay away. I try to use the words, use them kindly because your tongue is probably one of the strongest organs in your body, and it can heal or it can destroy.
Could you say a few words about your book?
The Circle of Gumption?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Circle of Gumption came through in 2015. I went through a divorce and I kind of went through about 6 or 8 months of real brokenness. I started reading and writing and thinking about it. And I really kind of started visiting in my mind about when I went to stay with my grandparents and the things that had happened. But I came up with this word of forgiveness. And so gumption is being all in to life and making those decisions. So I wrote that book. It probably took about 12 months to really get it down to where I wanted, but I talked a great deal about gumption. But the starting paragraph, the first chapter really, it is talking about my visit to Rwanda when I went to Africa in 2015 the first time. And the question is, are we really concerned about other people? The title actually says, does humankind really care for humans? And there are 3 examples in there that actually show the difference. Because as you and I know, the world forgot Rwanda in 1994. I mean, we had a genocide going on and nobody wanted to admit it. And there was a wonderful book. He wrote it really well. It took him over 10 years, but the general from Canada that was actually in charge in Rwanda, he wrote a book on it. He said, I know there is a God because I have met the devil. And he was there when all that was going on. But I think that in writing the book, it was cathartic for me. It gave me a chance to kind of unload all that stuff. And I talk about the things that happen to us in life. And in the book, I call them the dastardly deeds Yeah, dastardly D's, ABCD, but it's your diseases you're going to have in life, divorce, of course, death. We run into these things that happen. And so in living our life, there's some very practical steps in the circle of gumption of being intentional, being focused, have a plan. What are you going to do? What are you doing with your life? Are you wasting time? We hear a lot of people say, what are you doing? Killing time. Why would you want to do that? That is the most priceless asset we have, is the time that we're given. And we need to use that time. Just like you're doing, you're out sharing and you're giving to people, and you're not giving to get, you're giving to grow. And you're growing, the people that receive, they grow. And if we can just get a little better each day, 1%, think about how much better at the end of the year we would be if we have set the proper goals and we've got the proper habits. Tom Ziglar says, the fastest way to success, replace your bad habits with good habits. Don't drink as much caffeine as you used to. Go to bed early, get up early, all of those things. But you got to have a plan. I believe you have to have an intentional plan for your life.
Kenneth, unfortunately, we are at the end of our time for this episode. But before we leave, I wanted to ask you if any of our listeners wanted to connect with you or find out any more about your services, what would be the best way for them to do so, or best place for them to go?
Yeah. Once again, they can go to the website, croneal.com. There's a calendar on there. They can set a time. Or I'd just love for them to call 830-285-7010 or send me an email, merger, MERGER, at windstream.net. But I'd love to chat with them. And before we leave, I have to tell you a funny story. What happened last Sunday, we were driving up in the hill country, going up to Lakey and those little cities all up in there. And that morning, there were 3 people out there that I hadn't met yet, but now they're good friends. One guy was by the road. I stopped and talked to him, got his name and everything. Wonderful guy. And then at the gas station, I talked to a guy pumping gas, lived in Austin. He had stayed at Garner State Park overnight. He's going back to Austin. And then another guy at breakfast that morning. I didn't have syrup on my table, so I went over and got syrup from him, introduced myself to him, got his business card, made another friend. It's getting connected with people at where they are. Where are you today? And what are you going to do with your life?
Kenneth, as always, has been great. I can't wait till the Zig Ziglar explosion in October. And until then, we'll look forward to continuing this conversation.
Let's do it. Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate you. Thank you.